cooked a scheme with Buffalo bound for Ukraine. A con to get your foot on sacred ground. The cattle never shipped, the deal was never real. You only came for one thing, with a thing to steal. You shook a chairman's head like a baby was a trade, like a child's life was just a debt to be repaid. You walked onto their sacred land without a care, took a Northern Cheyenne order never yours to bear. You never set foot on that land before, walked away with something that was never yours. Now you have the nerve to tell the world you're a lie, wrapped in fake bloodlines you could never justify. What gives you the right? What gives you the right to walk in with a con and walk out with a life? She belonged to a nation, not yours to take, hiding behind bloodlines that you had to fake. What gives you the right? What gives you the right? Colonizers never change, they just change what they take. A baby girl loved and known by her own, her tribe of blood, her nation, not yours to own. ICWA, born to protect the children and the nations. No court ruled, no rights were ever signed away. You called the tribe racist for saying no, like a people guarding children should be shamed. But she still crossed the state line in your car that day. One chairman's word can't sell a tribe's child away. A father never signed and never let her go. Dressed up the theft in Buffalo, put on a show. You point the finger, cry that you're the one harmed, while you carry a stolen daughter in your arms. What gives you the right? What gives you the right to walk in with a con and walk out with a life? She belonged to a nation, not yours to take, hiding behind bloodlines that you had to fake. What gives you the right? What gives you the right? Colonizers never change, they just change what they take. You said you had a strategy, Buffalo to Ukraine, a deal you never made. You walked ours with a Northern Cheyenne, with a lie disguised as business, a chairman in your pocket, and a child you had no right to claim. A tribe said no, you called them racist anyway. The deal was fiction, but you took her anyway. Montana west, and you just drove away. It was never about Buffalo, it was never about Ukraine. It was always about my baby girl. Take the children, call it love. What gives you the right? What gives you the right? You crossed sacred ground and walked off with a life. She belonged to a nation, never yours to take. You built your whole story on the lies that you make. What gives you the right? What gives you the right? We are still here, and we are done being quiet. Northern Cheyenne still standing. She knows where home is. The scheme is on record. What gives you the right? Silence is betrayal. Silence is betrayal. Silence is betrayal.
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, Z.
Thank you, Doc. Hey, everybody. Moo's trying to help. She wants to help punch the button for pictures, but I get in enough trouble doing that myself. So glad my mods, Irish, Luna Fairy, and Fowler are here, my little sisters. Hey, Sleuthy sweetheart. Good to see you, Stormy. So happy you're here with us tonight. Oh, you guys, this is going to be one, okay? I hope you're ready for it. But first of all, Moo, stop. Yeah, Moo, go play with the toy. Find a toy.
We have a moose sighting. Well, the tail. Her tail came.
Yeah, Moo, stop. Okay, what are we gonna do? Find a toy. Where I saw a toy. Here we go. Here's a toy. Found a toy. Let's give her a toy because otherwise she's gonna be a problem. Sorry, everybody. Here you go. There you go. Play with that. Then go take your nap because that's what you're good at, little lady. Okay, so welcome to my trial junkies, my truth seekers, and my justice warriors. I'm so glad you're with us tonight. And yes, Irish, she does get to be a problem now and then, I hate to tell you. I know it's hard to imagine, but she can be a little Dickens when she wants to be. Right, Moo? See, she knocked her toy on the ground, and now she's looking at me like, do something. Sorry, kid. We're live. You're done. That's just the way it is. Well, I know Auntie Irish is just in denial, but that's okay. I understand. I really do. Because I do the same thing with Riley and with your babies. So, but let's go ahead and we're going to get started tonight. And I'm just quickly having to finish something up here that did not get finished. That's why I'm kind of stalling, just in case y'all wondering. There we go. And we're ready. But I'm Z, your storyteller, in the wilderness of injustice, and my ride or die doc is riding shotgun tonight. And what we're about to lay out is going to shake you. Federal investigators, a sitting county attorney at the time, a terminated investigation, a whistleblower who went all the way to the office of the special counsel. Doc, are you ready for this one?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then let's go. Tonight, we refuse to be silent. It's a form of betrayal. So what you're about to hear has been sourced from federal documents, court records, Fox 13 investigative reporting. Reveal was at the Center for Investigative Reporting. They did an awesome job. And the Native American Rights Fund. And we're not speculating. We're reading records. Tonight, we're going somewhere that makes people in Utah very uncomfortable. And people in Utah, I'm sorry, you people should be a little uncomfortable. Hey, there. Hey, Kerrville, thank you for joining us. Because we're going to talk about power. We're going to discuss a baby girl, and we're going to look at a federal law designed solely to protect Native children from exactly what happened to her. Remember last week we talked about ICWA, and that's the Indigenous Children's Welfare Act. This has a lot to do with that. We're going to examine what happened when Homeland Security started asking questions, and then they were suddenly told to stop. And so this is David Leavitt. The Leavitt name holds significant influence in Utah, you guys. And we're not referring to just a local politician with a little sway. We're talking about a family who had decades of reach in law, politics, wealth, and the church. The Leavitt family is a prominent multi-generational Utah dynasty with deep roots in the Mormon pioneer history and religion, business, politics. Key figures include 19th century pioneer Dudley Leavitt, who was a Southern Utah Indian agent and polygamist. The insurance industry leader, Dixie Leavitt. The family built the Leavitt Group, one of the country's largest insurance companies, and established the Dixie and Annie Leavitt Family Foundation. One researcher noted that the Leavitt family name represents the third largest family in Mormonism. And that's something. Hey, Josh, glad to see you, darling. But David Leavitt is a lawyer. His wife, Dr. Shalom Eastwood Leavitt, she has a PhD from Penn State and is also an assistant professor at Brigham Young University. And she is also a lawyer. And together they have 9 children. They sit in pews, they attend church functions, they mentor people. They are, by every visible measure, pillars of the community. Or were they? His own brother, David's own brother, was actually an ex or former governor, Mike Leavitt, who served as Utah's governor from 1993 to 2003. Then went on to serve as the EPA administrator and later as Secretary of Health and Human Services under President George W. Bush. So these are not people, you guys, who operate below the radar. These are individuals that the radar was designed to protect.
High profile.
Yes. And we've seen a lot of that lately with the high rollers and the political leaders that are getting a lot of cover. And the context matters. And in 2017, David Leavitt drove to the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer, Montana. And what he did there and what he said about it 3 years later on a camera, it changed everything. Changed everything. This is David and Shalom. And the child at the center of this story was a newborn girl. Her mother was a young woman on the reservation who was struggling. She had no job at the time. She was battling alcohol dependency. She was caring for a toddler and a newborn child at the time, this baby, didn't have much support. She had hurt her back and was having some issues, so she was having a hard time caring for the children. One of her relatives already had one of her other little girls. And so when she reached out for help, because her mom told her, her mother, Mary, said, I will come get the children. I will take care of them until you can get yourself sober and taken care of, and then you can have them back. Well, eventually, the family reached out to the Leavitt family. And you want to know, well, how did the Leavitt family get involved? Well, David's parents back in Washington State had participated in the LDS Church's Indian Student Placement Program, a program that for decades removed Native children from reservations to live with white Latter-day Saint families during the school year in the name of education and opportunity. So starting around the age of 8, the baby's grandmother, Mary Grace Medicine Top, was picked up from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation every fall and sent to live with Shalom's family in Washington. She did that for at least a couple of years, and that relationship remained strong. She kind of looked at Shalom's mother as her mom. The baby's mother gave her and so during this year, when we stop and think about it, doesn't this kind of sound like residential schools? What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, they did let the kids go home in the summertime.
Yep.
But still, you're taking Native children off of a reservation, putting them in white homes of Latter-day Saints. Meanwhile, they were actually baptizing these children so they could put them on the Mormon rolls.
Talk about confusion when they'd go home for the summer.
Yeah, really. It really would be. And there were times when Mary had some difficult times as she got older. And so she dropped her kids off with the Leavitt family. And so, and I guess it wasn't the Leavitt family, it was Shalom's side of the family. So, but they weren't really close with Shalom. She was one of the younger girls because she had been raised in a huge family. So the baby's mother actually, well, we'll get into that. There's the mother of this baby and also the father, the biological father. Now, he didn't know that he actually had a child at the time. He, when he first found out, him and her, well, her name was Tanya, they had met. And when they met, he said they spent the whole day there, the whole night just talking, he said. And then the next day she disappeared. And he said, I just was like, was she here? he was just really, she was kind of like like a fairy. She came and she went, and he was just really intrigued with her. Fowler, you're right. Parents wanting their kids to get a better educate, and that's kind of what they played upon these, the Native community, is we'll give them a better education. And so, but we know with ICWA, it's to protect the rights of the children. And that's the important part, is that Native children, these are sovereign nations. They have the right to protect their children. But it didn't apply this way, and they were able to get around it. So let's start with the legal experts who later reviewed everything, and they said it should have never happened. But before we get into what Leavitt actually did, the law exists to prevent, like I said, these children from being taken out of their homes due to the residential school and all these things that we had talked about before, the 60 scoop, and how they were trying to raise the man and kill the native. That was their motto. So the ICWA law came into fact in 1978, and nearly a quarter to a third of all Native children in the United States had been taken from their homes and placed in non-Native families. And that's not a statistic. It's a continuation of the boarding school era under a different name. And ICWA was created to prevent this from happening. It grants the tribal courts actual authority over adoption cases themselves. They get to say what happens to their children. Hey, Pammy, no problems. But it requires that extended families and tribal members be given priority placement before considering any non-Native family. And it specifies that when a Native child lives on the reservation, the tribe has the authority to decide how custody cases are managed. And this case should have stayed in Northern Cheyenne with the nation, and it should have been in the tribal court. That's not where it went. So let's go ahead and talk about what happened. Not Gary, that's the father. David here, because Shalom's parents told them that Mary was concerned about her daughter, okay? And that she was having a difficult time. And so David and Shalom, who already had 8 children, decided that they would get involved. And so he started going up to the reservation, and he would go around to the mother, and at first she was insulted, like, what are you doing here? She knew she didn't have much, but they were her babies and she loved them. And he would bring groceries, he would help her pay her electric bill, so he was slowly wearing her down. That's not the story he was telling. He was actually bragging about what he did at dinner parties. And so this investigative reporter ended up hearing about what he was saying at a dinner party. And this is what he was saying. He was telling people that he had gotten the child, and the way he got her was after the family had said someone needs to help her, and they decided they would be the ones that would help. He said that he decided he would go up to the reservation. And so he flew up, rented a car, and she asked him, did you know anybody on the reservation? And he said, no. Well, right there, we know that's he misspoke, because we know he'd been going up to see the mother. So see right there, number 1, check mark. So he says he didn't know anybody on the reservation. And as he was driving up there, he said, I was trying to figure out what my game plan was going to be. How was I going to approach this? Because he said, I understood, that natives are very racist. Yeah, that's what he said. The natives are racist about letting their children be raised in non-native homes. It's like, I hate to tell you, sir, but there are laws. It's called ICWA. You're an attorney. Your wife's an attorney. but this is how he was framing it. Yeah, the audacity, really.
They're not racist about letting their children be raised in white homes. They want their children raised in their home.
Exactly.
I mean, you can think about that for a second. I mean, that's to call somebody racist for not wanting to have their child be in a white home. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, therapist, Moo, you are not to walk on the laptop. You know that. So, and in fact, one of a native, her name's Stephanie Binley, a native placement specialist for Utah foster care. She explained it clearly. She said it's best for native children to stay in native communities. She mentioned that the definition of family, when it concerns a native child, is up to the tribe to decide, not a Utah court. Meanwhile, David Leavitt, this county attorney, who knows exactly what the statute says about this, he went ahead and traveled up there. And so this young reporter, she found out that he was running for re-election. And so she invited him to an interview because she wanted to investigate this story he was telling. He just didn't realize it was going to open up a can of worms. So he said, him and his wife had vowed we would never adopt a Native American child. There is prejudice within the Native community against non-natives adopting Native children. Native children are governed by the tribe and the Indigenous Child Welfare Act, or ICWA. And in fact, he made it sound like it was like ICWA was holding them hostage. And it's like, really, dude? Okay.
Well, you're not thinking too much about history.
No, he was not. Definitely not. And so he got relaxed. He's telling his little story. And these are his own words, you guys. And we'll put some links. So if you want to listen to it, it'll just make your skin crawl.
Yeah, the links are in the description. So,
yeah. So he describes ICWA, as that he said he wanted no possibility of a child being taken from them, that he would only adopt if they could keep the child and there wouldn't be that issue, and also that they would get the blessing of the tribe. And he said, I didn't know anyone on the reservation. This was a cold call. Well, we know that's not true.
No.
He had visited the mother several times, bringing her groceries, paying her bills. So, and he didn't tell the filmmaker that. He said he wasn't sure how he would approach the tribal president, but he decided that's who he would go to. So on his way up there, he said a strategy came into his head. Yeah, strategy. And this is the tribal chairman at the time. And his name is Lawrence Jace Killsbank, I think. Killsback. So he shows up unannounced at the reservation without an appointment to meet Jace here. And they confirmed that the tribal president was Lawrence Jace Killsback. And in the recording, he describes walking into the meeting and telling Killsback he was there for 2 reasons. But he would tell him the second reason first. And before he told him the second reason, he would tell him a story. And this story that he described as a close personal friendship with the former Ukrainian president, Viktor Yushchenko, I think is how you pronounce it. And he said he wanted to broker a bilateral agreement between the Northern Cheyenne Nation and the sovereign nation of Ukraine to introduce the tribe's buffalo herd into Western Ukraine. He basically said, they need buffalo and you have some. Well, here's a side note. European bison, they did go extinct in the wild in 1917, but they were successfully reintroduced starting in 1965. By 2020, and this what we're talking about now actually took place in 2017, but 3 years later, Ukraine had the 4th largest population of European bison in the world. But this is this idea he's pitching, which, if you ask me, was just horse hockey. Cocky. Okay. So he sold it though. And once Killsback was engaged, he told him, that, you help me with this that I want, and I'm going to help you sell your bison to the Ukraine. You're going to make money. So Leavitt reveals the first reason though he had come. He wanted to adopt one of their people. Now, when he went to tribal social services to say, hey, I've talked to the chairman, she told him no. And he said, I didn't know what to do exactly, but I decided to go back and talk to the chairman one more time. Yeah, because he got told no. So
didn't like that too much.
Oh, no. In fact, he responded to the employee that was there to protect the Native children. He said on camera, he called her shameless. He just let her have it with both barrels. And then he accused the entire Native community of being prejudiced against him for not handing over the child. Those are his words. He called her shameless because she was protecting the child. And so because he went back to the chairman, and so the chairman calls her up and he's like, the Leavitts are really important people to our tribe. They do so much. Horse hockey. And, he put on this spiel. And so 5 minutes later, after he'd left the meeting, he gets a call from the social worker. She's figured out a way for him to get the child. And the timeline matters. He had visited the reservation a few times before, like we said. He originally wanted all 3 of her daughters. But they were like, no, you can't have all 3. And in the meantime, between his visits, the mother had been arrested for something to do with her addiction. So he kind of went in at the right time to get a hold of the children. Now, the grandmother, Mary, wasn't living on the reservation at the time. So when Leavitt stopped by Mary's house after he'd gotten the child, and he takes the child, and then he goes by the grandmother's house, and her uncle Darwin was also there at the time. And so when that happens, he said it was the mother's decision to make. And the grandmother's like, well, no, it's not. She's in jail. She can't be making decisions right now. So then even Darwin, her brother, the uncle to the girls, confronted him. And he said, who are you? I don't understand why you're involved. Because they taped this. Reveal has this on tape. And he told Leavitt, why are you involved? He said, well, I'm involved because you guys asked me to. And Mary told him, I've never given you permission to get involved. And Darwin pointed out it had been years since this man had even been in contact with their family because they hadn't been told that he had been on the side seeing his sister. And so he told him, he says, you want to challenge me, buddy? I'd be happy for you to do it. So he was threatening him. He said he cared about the children and then acknowledged in the same breath that he didn't even know that they existed because Darwin said, you didn't even know they existed. He said, well, once you told Shalom's family, I got involved. So it's on you. And he said that he would raise the girls so they knew their culture better than even Darwin did. And when he was loading the baby into his car before he left the reservation with that child, do you know he was trying to get the car seat into the car? And the tribe started coming out because they wanted to know what this white man was doing with this baby. He got so nervous, he just put the baby without the car seat being in the car and took off. Yeah, big, brave bully. And so he got nervous, took off with the kid. Then he's threatening the grandmother and the uncle and saying terrible things. And Jace Killsback, the chairman, he said, looking back at it later, he had written to the reporter. He didn't appear on camera. He says, I shouldn't have given Leavitt the letter, because Killsback had a really rough time in being a chairman. He got himself in trouble. He got elected. He got impeached. He got reelected. And then his last day of office, he actually signed a letter stating that he was okay with the children going with Leavitt. And he said that it was okay because he was considered family. Now, how he was saying he was family to these people was because the grandmother had been one of those children put in Shalom's parents' home for the school year. And so he was saying that made him an uncle, and then, another kind of uncle for the kids.
Well, that's hardly family.
Yeah, a step uncle, and it's like, you had nothing to do with
uncle twice removed.
Yeah. But the thing was, they talked to someone from the tribe later, years later, and he said, actually, the chairman does not have the right to give the authority to bless the adoption on behalf of the tribe. It is up to the tribe. So that was a false.
Pammy called him a stunkle.
Yeah. No, I'd call him a lot of things. But he used that letter to show the courts in Utah that he had tribal support. And that was another thing. This should have never been taken out of Utah or out of Montana, because it should have gone through tribal court. But he took that baby and took off for Utah before he even actually had legal custody of her, and went through the courts in Utah, where his family is rich, powerful, and they could take her.
Gee, I wonder what decision they would make.
Yeah, I wonder. And of course, Killsback made the comment. He says, well, I didn't get paid for doing the letter or anything. I did get $500 for my campaign, but I didn't get anything else. It's like, dude, that's what you were paid for the letter.
So that's what the child's life was worth, was $500 to him.
Well, in a Buffalo deal that never happened.
Well, yeah.
Because he'd promised him this big Buffalo deal. And so, sad to say, Lawrence Jace Killsback actually did pass away January 17th of 2026. So we don't have him to confirm anything else beside what he wrote in the letter, saying he regretted ever, writing it. And he said he wrote it in the language that Leavitt told him to. So we won't get any more from his story, and that's sad. And the woman that was actually the child welfare person for the tribe, she passed away due to natural causes. So we won't get her story as to how she was probably harassed into handing the child over. And actually Killsback did spend time in prison for conviction of federal wire fraud and conspiracy to commit false claims between 2014 and 2017, the same years he served as tribal health director and then tribal president. He was siphoning federal, state, and tribal funds through a fraudulent travel reimbursement scheme. So he was sentenced to 6 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay more than $25,000 in restitution. And the man whose blessing David Leavitt used to override tribal social services was simultaneously stealing from the tribe and from federal programs meant to serve his tribe. He said he was doing it to help the biological mother, but, was he really? No. He was a flawed man. And he's deceased now, and that's sad. And I feel bad for his family. But things were done. And I worry, let's hope there are no other chairmen that are out there doing this kind of stuff.
Oh, but so don't be naive.
I know. I'm not. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. But, We try and be positive when we can.
Right.
So the biological mom had signed away her parental rights because she just felt like this was the best option for her. What about the father? Let's talk about him. Because he didn't even know he had a child for a long time. When he finally found out, he actually did send child support, sent diapers, would send her packages, And so when he found out, she had told him that she thought it was best that they let her uncle, so-called uncle, adopt this child. He said, well, if you don't want to raise the baby, I will raise the baby. And he did try to go up. He would drive up to the reservation to try and get this child. He didn't know that the child had already been taken by Leavitt. And because he was doing it in Utah, that posed problems. Now, there was a woman that was with the Utah State Bar Ethics Advisory Opinion Committee and a former ethics professor at the University of Utah, and her name was Linda Smith. And Linda said that Leavitt was clearly politicking to get his way, she called it, when she saw him on camera talking about this great deal he did. And she said it was really swarmy, a way to talk about someone letting you adopt a child that might otherwise be better raised by the tribe. And that was the problem. But there's something else on this recording, something beyond the Buffalo deal and the confrontation and everything. Because one thing we have to look into is there was some other stuff going on with this dude that was sketchy. So, I mean, it's not like this was his first, oops, I did something. No, he had some sketchiness going on. And so, my heart breaks for the grandmother and the uncle because he kept threatening them, and telling them that if they wanted to fight him, like bring it on, he was ready. And he told them that these girls would be frequent visitors to the reservation. He said, I will have a house on the reservation. Like, I don't know how he thought he was going to get a house there,
Mm-hmm.
And that when she got older, she would understand her duty to the tribe. Yeah. That wasn't going to happen. But so let's go ahead and jump into this other, because this is where it gets a little sketch. Because so in 2017 is when he took the little girl, and it took over 2 years to go through the court system. The father fought, but Utah actually has laws to prevent fathers that are unmarried really to get their kids back. And some of the things are that they have to jump through a lot of hoops to prove that, you're the father. Well, he had gotten that proof. But one of them is you have to do all this before the mother gives up the authority of the child. But he didn't know she'd given it up. So there was nothing he could do. And so he didn't get to have his own child. And that doesn't make sense to me. Utah, something's wrong with you. I think you're just trying to get too many people to put in your books,
Yep.
have more Mormons. But okay, so what was happening in 2021? Let's look at that. And this is when the sheriff's office actually launched an investigation into ritualistic SA and human trafficking of children across 3 counties in Utah. San Pete and Juab, I guess, Juab. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know how else you would, but anywho. So their sources indicated this was not a cold case. And here, let me fix this real quick. I just had a minor oopsie, but that's okay. It's no biggie.
Okay.
It never is. I always figure it out. Trust me, Doc.
Yeah.
Oh, you're laughing at me, Doc.
No, I laugh with you, never at you.
I wasn't laughing.
Yeah, but you should have been.
Oh, okay. Okay. So here we go. So the person was David Hamblin. He is the person in 2021 who gets picked up for this ritualistic essay in human trafficking. And when this happens, Leavitt was the county attorney at the time. He was in charge. And he's the one that says, you know, before any of it blew up publicly, someone had he gave an interview, right? He gives this interview and they ask him if he acknowledges that ritual sex crimes, are they real? You know, and at that time in this interview, he says he actually knew some victims and that this kind of abuse actually does happen. And that in this interview, this exists with him talking about this happening. That he says, yes, these victims, it's real. You know, this is what's happened to them. So he's going along with it, right? And so, and it's not speculation. These are his own words. So then what happens is, because this investigation starts going deeper. And when it goes deeper, this is the sheriff of Utah. And so he's investigating this. And David finally gave this whole, what do I want to say? Man, I got twisted around here, guys. Just hang with me a sec. Okay. So when the sheriff's office launched this investigation, their source indicated that this was happening between 1990 and 2010. And it wasn't a cold case. He was charged, Hamblin was charged with 18 felony SA counts back in 2012. And those charges were ultimately dismissed. But some of the individuals involved were described as high profile because they were saying it was a cult. Now, before this blew up, like I said, Leavitt gave this interview where he talked about these crimes do happen, and it's terrible, that he knew some of the victims. Well, when the investigation later started pointing kind of in his direction, he did a complete 180, and he called the whole thing fabricated, politically motivated, and based on unverified statements. So he gives this press conference. Now, the sheriff's department has not said his name in any of this, but Leavitt did know David Hamblin. So he gives this press conference. He gets up there and he says in his own words that Hamblin was his elders quorum president in LDS Church when Leavitt was a law student. He was also a neighbor to him, someone he described of having a family connection to, and Leavitt knew what Hamblin was into. He said publicly that Hamblin had practiced Native American rituals, killed a deer, removed their hearts, and drank their blood. He knew it well enough to prosecute him for it, charging Hamblin in ICWA County for poaching the deer specifically for these ritualistic purposes. And Hamblin at that time pleaded guilty to the deer charge. Got it? So this is the man who then is, after he's saying all this stuff about this guy doing native practices, which it's like, I don't know, dude, where are you coming up with this? He's going to take a native child and raise it, saying stuff about native rituals. I have questions. I have questions about this. So this man, this Utah County attorney, personally prosecuted his own neighbor, his former church leader, for ritual animal sacrifice. And he knew the victims because they were his children, Hamblin's children. In his words, I know some of the victims of it. I know some victims. I was not in a position to prosecute it. So when the sheriff's office expands the search and the investigation, and then these accusers actually mention his name, Hamblin, he gets arrested in 2022. Leavitt goes out and starts talking about these charges and saying that the whole thing is a political hoax, that he didn't wait to be named. So the sheriff's never named him. He's the one putting himself in the middle of a cult-like ritualistic sex abuse charges for children. He's doing it. I mean, this is just insanity. And he states, I'm not a leader of people. I'm not a cannibal, and I'm not a child abuser. None of which anybody said he was. And then he calls the accusers tragically mentally ill 5 times, all during the same press conference. And the sheriff's response was direct. He said his office would not be intimidated by Leavitt's attempts to derail the investigation. He said they do not discuss the names of victims or suspects. And this is David Hamblin. The Utah County Attorney's Office, who had previously dropped related charges against Hamblin back in 2012. So after an undercover phone call captured him confessing to SAing one of his victims, telling them he was sorry he did it. The 2012 charges get dropped by the same office Leavitt was running at the time. Interested? Yeah. Makes me go, And surrounding all this were other patterns that Leavitt's own employees were raising alarms about. This is one of the prosecutors who actually left the office rather than comply with how the cases that Leavitt was dealing with were being handled. He said they had a stalking victim whose case was taken away from its assigned prosecutor, and the charges were dropped against the suspect because that suspect had donated to Leavitt's campaign.
Oh,
That's interesting.
yeah.
And then a handyman, this is the handyman, who was Leavitt's handyman, had over 40 bookings. Noticed his charges were quietly reduced because he was the handyman for the Leavitts. Over 40 charges, and they get reduced. Yeah, this looks like an upstanding dude. I'm just saying. So the sheriff of Utah County, speaking on the record, said he disagreed with how Leavitt was doing things. He said he's hurting Utah County, and Utah's own bar association actually publicly reprimanded Leavitt for statements he made at a press conference in a separate deletion case. Statements the court found violated the defendant's right to a fair trial because this man had the gall to say, I've seen the evidence that will never be shown in court, and he is so guilty. You can't do that at a press conference.
Oh, my goodness.
Of course he got censored. He later testified he knew immediately after the press conference that it was a problem. And this is the man who was deciding whom to prosecute at that time in Utah County. We told you that Hamblin was arrested in September of 2022. And here's the update you deserve. Those charges are gone. The 4th District Judge, Roger Griffin, dismissed all 6 felony and SA charges with prejudice. That means they can't be refiled. Ever. Not because he was found innocent. Not because the allegations were dismissed, because police and prosecutors sat on pieces of evidence for more than 2 years. A police report from the very first victim interviewed in September of 2022 describing the abuse in specific and detailed terms, including the ritual context in which it allegedly occurred. That report was not turned over to the defense until an entirely new prosecutor was brought in from the Attorney General's office. By then the damage was done. The judge authored a 34-page ruling stating that the case involved too many prosecutorial missteps to ensure a fair trial moving forward. He emphasized that this was a rare situation where a permanent dismissal was justified. He clarified he was not merely a technicality. His remarks, the allegations demand careful scrutiny, and a defendant accused of a crime must receive a fair trial.
Do the police, the sheriff's department or whatever, have any decent reason why they held on to the evidence for so long?
It wasn't them, it was the prosecutor.
Yeah.
And who was the attorney? Who was in charge of the county attorney?
Okay.
I don't know. I can add 1 + 1. So the Utah County Sheriff's Office released a statement expressing shock. They said their investigators had promptly provided all necessary information to the prosecution. They also noted that neither the investigators nor the victim were given the chance to speak during the evidentiary hearing. The case was decided based on one-sided defense filings with no testimony, no rebuttal, no voice for the people who came forward. So I don't know about you, but maybe too many big names, allegedly, were in those reports. What are your thoughts?
It just seems to me that there's a little bit of one-sided. They got they covered it over as what happened.
Exactly.
Because they didn't want information to be found out. And there you have it. It's a cover up, basically.
Yeah. So everybody, does this sound familiar? Kind of like maybe Epstein files? I mean, I'm not saying it's related to the Epstein files, but I'm just saying, hey. Yeah, Josh, you're right. Files with big names in it.
Yep.
So the prosecutor who initially filed the charges was appointed to become a judge halfway through the case. Isn't that interesting? The replacement prosecutor from the AG's office reviewed the files and said he couldn't secure a conviction. The victim never was heard in open court, not once. Hamblin still faces some separate charges in Manti, filed in another county. His ex-wife is also charged in a related case because this was a supposed cult with high-value people involved. However, the Utah court case, the one most directly connected to the investigation involving Leavitt and his circle, is permanently closed. Allegedly. Convenient. Justice isn't always the last word. What can we say? So
the scales are not working right.
No, someone's standing on them. So in the interview, he had spoke about how he perceived child SA, acknowledging that realistic SA cases do happen and are real. And this is where it gets really disgusting, people. As he's discussing that this is real, that happens to people, he compared the grooming of a child, a little girl, to the training of a dog. He describes in calm, methodical detail how a man can condition his dog to roll over by giving it a reward and then repeating it, repetition. So he said it is on air. There is footage. I would have showed it, but I didn't want to get in trouble. How a man can condition a little girl. You have to start young, he said, to perform a certain sex act on demand. He said you give her rewards. And then he laughed. And it was creepy, wasn't it, Doc?
Yes, it was. Very much so.
I made Doc listen to it because I was like, you have to hear this. And then he said, it's the same way that you help a child learn how to make their bed. Those are his words in an interview. And this is a man that took a baby from a native tribe. And sometimes I wonder what that mother would think about her child now if she knew all of this in this guy's background. So casually talking about teaching your dog to roll over with rewards and repetition, you start girls young and give them rewards and repeat. The same as learning to make your bed. I'm not using the actual graphic words he used because he tells you exactly what he means.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you this, those comments and that video, they get sent to the Department of Homeland Security. And we're part of them. They already have a federal record. And that laugh is on tape. Now, this is the man, like I said, who drove to Montana to take a native baby girl. This is the man who called tribal social workers shameless for trying to protect their children. And this is 3 years after that baby was taken home to Utah that this filmmaker's footage found its way to local Fox News affiliate and then found its way to Homeland Security. This is Noel Ingalls. He is a former HSI analyst named Noel. He confirmed on camera that his team had been investigating sexual allegations against David Leavitt for several years before the video surfaced. The video surfaced in 2020. He adopted this child in 2017. Anyone do the math? Yeah. So they were already investigating him for sexual allegations. That's federal, right? It's now, when they get the tape, it's 2020. So they put it to their case file and they open a formal human trafficking investigation. So if it was several years before 2020, was it before he ever got the little girl? Ingalls said it plainly. It is literally their job to make sure children are safe. 5 months after receiving the video, documents show Ingalls and his entire team were removed from the case. Remember, his brother, the ex or former governor, actually worked for President George W. Bush and worked in the federal government. And now all of a sudden, here's information that goes to the federal government concerning his brother, and within 5 months, it gets taken away. They remove them from the case. Makes me wonder. I have questions. And these are the files, or the letters, because he filed a whistleblower complaint. And what came back was a letter from the United States Office of Special Counsel signed by attorney John U. Young of the Disclosure Unit. The letter confirmed that OSC had reviewed the submission and found a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing. Under a federal law, specifically 5 USC 121.3, the OSC formally requested the Secretary of Homeland Security conduct a full investigation and report back within 60 days. The letter made clear that this referral was not a final determination, that the allegations were proven yet, but it also made it clear that this matter would remain open until that final report was forwarded to the President and to Congress. A 60-day deadline issued by the Office of Special Counsel to the Secretary of Homeland Security about the termination of a child trafficking investigation into a sitting county attorney. Makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
Then they reached out to Mr. Leavitt directly. His spokesman said he would be happy to tell the entire story. More than 72 hours later, that same spokesman walked it back, said Leavitt, she said, was not available to speak until after the primary election he was running for. And she added this: anything you've brought up has no bearing on his performance as Utah County Attorney and is not relevant. A federal whistleblower complaint, a letter from the Office of Special Counsel confirming a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing in the shutdown of a child trafficking investigation is not relevant. Now, I need you to also think about what else was happening in 2020. Now, I'm going to make it absolutely clear. I'm not saying this has anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein or his network. It's not what we're saying tonight. But what we're asking is a simple question that nobody in power seems to be asking at the time. In 2019, we know the Epstein files were making their way through courts. There were names connected to those files, making powerful people very nervous at the highest levels. At the same time, in that same year, a Homeland Security team investigating a city county attorney for human trafficking involving a native child was pulled off the case within 5 months. No explanation, no transfer, no reassignment to another team, just removed. Remember, there were complaints about Epstein's trafficking being given to federal offices at the time. They were ignored. So I guess back then, those in power decided they weren't concerned about the children if the people who had complaints against them had money and power, especially a native child from Montana. And understand the weight of what that removal meant. The Office of Special Counsel, a federal watchdog body group, later revealed this whistleblower's submission and found it credible enough to trigger a formal referral to the Secretary of Homeland Security under federal statutes and gave them 60 days to investigate and report. They stated the matter remained open until the report reached the president or Congress. But the investigation was gone. There's nothing there.
There was no investigation.
No.
So, how can they refer to an investigation when there is none?
Yep. We're not connecting dots that aren't there. What we're doing is asking why in 2020 that exposed how little accountability the powerful faced when children are involved. A whistleblower had to file that complaint. Something went wrong. Something went wrong. And and this was one native child, but we know they weren't doing anything with the Epstein files. How many native children could have been in those files? How many other native children or other children during those years were not looked into? These are things we have to ask and things we just can't ignore.
Yeah.
Because the rich and the powerful seem to get away with a whole lot, people. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about Shalom Leavitt. While David has dominated the headlines because of his position, her background, she professionally is relevant to the story in a way that deserves to be said out loud. Dr. Shalom Eastwood Leavitt holds a PhD from Penn State and is a professor at Brigham University. She's also an attorney. She described herself as a researcher of healthy sexuality in committed relationships. She studies what she calls sexual mindfulness, how being present and non-judgmental during intimacy is connected to better sexual functioning and satisfaction. She has been published in top academic journals and teaches seminars on sex and relationships worldwide. On her personal website, she also shares warmly about her experiences as a Fulbright Fellow in the Ukraine, teaching at Shevchenko University in Kiev, and conducting research on how cultural and religious traditions influence families' well-being. Cultural and religious traditions. And yet you've taken a native child away from her cultural and religious traditions. Guess her well-being doesn't matter. Oh. She immersed herself in the culture that was not her own there in the Ukraine. She valued that experience enough to highlight it in her professional biography. But here, that little native girl whose grandmother grew up in Cheyenne with a community language, traditions, ceremonies belonging to the Northern Plains, and that little girl hasn't been allowed contact with her native family at all. Not a visit, not a call, not a ceremony. Nothing. Remember what he said to the grandmother and uncle? Oh, she will visit the reservation often. She'll know the traditions and the culture better than you do. Nope. The Leavitts believe in the transformative power of cultural immersion as long as it's a culture they choose. The child they took from Northern Cheyenne is growing up in a castle in Scotland, fully immersed in the Leavitt's world. You heard me right. They have purchased a castle that they are refurbishing in Scotland. They have left the country. That's interesting. The tribe wants to know this child, and according to Reveal's reporting, the Leavitts won't let them see her. The grandmother said when she was really little, they saw her a couple of times, and then that was it. Even the mother has not seen her. She has gotten pictures, and of course, David Leavitt still pays, because she's gone to school, he pays some of her bills still to keep her quiet. Money. This is the only picture of this child. On all of their pages on Facebook, their pages of them refurbishing the castle in Scotland, this child no longer exists. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, bottom line is that the rich and powerful don't play by the same rules. They just don't.
No. And in the years that followed after this video, after the whistleblower, the investigations, and after these two left Utah, they are now the owners of Knockderry Castle in Cove, Scotland, on the shores of Loch Long. And here is a picture of the castle. They have a YouTube page on the castle. They have Facebook on the castle, Instagram on the castle, showing all this work they're doing and how much they're putting into the community. I'm just wondering, hey, does the Guardy have anyone that can do a welfare check on this child? I'd really like to know, because she's not in family photos. Where is the child? I want to know. They describe it as a dream. They pursued for decades to own a castle, a forgotten building they want to lovingly restore, a new chapter taken from the pages of a fairy tale. I don't know if they realize, but this child knows that you are not her biological parents. All she has to do is look in the mirror. Many Native children who have been taken from their families eventually all try to go home, because the land calls them. They know they don't belong anywhere but where they were born. And it does call them back. And for many of them, they go through a very rough time trying to learn their culture. You've taken a Native child from the North Plains and put her over in Scotland. And how is she supposed to learn her culture? How is she supposed to know what a powwow is? How is she supposed to learn her language, the dances?
She won't.
No. And you think one of the things he told her Uncle Darwin was, well, I'm a good father. Really? Because you've taken everything from her. You've taken her identity. ICWA doesn't hold children hostage. ICWA is to protect sovereign children. I don't know how the people in Utah would feel if all of a sudden, let's say, the government decided everybody that was Mormon no longer could raise their children. That's something to think about. What if they decided that you weren't responsible enough to raise your children and started taking them from you? How would you feel? These are children that have intergenerational trauma. This has been happening their whole lives since the colonizers stepped foot on soil here. They have done everything they can do to get rid of the native population. David's own words were, well, I'm not trying to raise a white person. I'm raising a native child. Then what's she doing in Scotland? Or are you running from something? Are you afraid eventually someone's going to see through your fraud and know that this child should not be with you? It's probably too late for that, but you wonder why she can't be assimilated into her tribe and you could still be the parents. But he was all hung up on, well, she's going to know we're her parents. No, she's going to look in the mirror and wonder what happened. She's going to know. She's not stupid. You know, they give all these interviews about the mist on the lock and the healing energy of the grounds. They post about doorbells, spider webs, WW2 graffiti, water damage in the music room. They share a vision. They talk about sharing it with the world. And the Northern Cheyenne tribe formally requested federal authorities to investigate this case. A former tribal council member said the loss of this child was a collective wound, that the tribe considers her one of their own and hopes to reconnect with her when she's old enough to decide for herself. And trust me, Leavitts, she will want to reconnect. They always
how old is the child by now?
She would be between 8 and 9.
Okay.
So, but when she starts those teen years and they start having some issues, what's she going to say? What all kids say, you're not my real mom and dad. It's going to hit them in the face. And one thing, her father, Gary, he was from a tribe in California, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I don't have it right here in front of me. But his mother told him after he was unable to get his child, and they actually got rid of his rights because of all the swift illegal stuff they pulled. Of course, he said they didn't do anything illegal, but semantics. Mm-hmm. But his mother told him, she says, write a diary for your child. And he said, at first it was very awkward. He says, what do you write to a baby? But he said, I just started every night. I would just write something simple. Sometimes it would be, the Creator gave us snow today. There's snow on the ground. And he said, it's become quite easy now. He says, every night he tries to write something to his child so that maybe one day, if she comes looking, she'll find out that she was in his thoughts daily. It wasn't something that he never wanted to give his child up once he found out he had a baby. So that kind of broke my heart listening to him, because you could tell that once he found out he had a child, he said once he got the proof back for the DNA, he said it was just like a calmness came over him that he had this baby. So, like I said, their social media accounts showcase their castle restoration, the photos of the grounds, progress on the work and the life they are creating in Scotland. No photographs of the child, not one, on any platform, in a social media presence that is otherwise enthusiastically and publicly documenting a child who should be growing visible and part of the family that claims to love her is completely absent. Hey, Susie and Jules, thanks for joining us. So considering everything we know, the investigation ending in 5 months with the DHS, the whistleblower letter indicating the chance of wrongdoing, the graphic comments he's made on tape, her separation from her native family, and the complete lack of public records about the child's life, I hope someone in authority will request a welfare check. Hey, somebody call the Gardaí if you know anyone in Scotland. We're just asking right now on this platform to anyone who has the power to do something with that question. Where is she? And is she okay? Could someone in Scotland please look into this? I don't think, Scotland, you want any more craziness that we see happening because of the Epstein files in other countries happening in your country because of trafficking issues. Something to think about. She's going to stand out her whole life as a native child living in Scotland, and you just wonder how she will handle it growing up. I really worry about her. I've read so many stories of, children that were taken from their tribes and raised in Jewish families. And at times others in the family would tell her things like, oh, you're just going to grow up and be a prostitute. You're not even going to, you're just an Indian. Because not everybody in the family always is welcoming. And one thing about this, when I listened to the one interview was they made the comment that some in the family are not thrilled that David and Shalom stepped up and did this. They're trying to be quiet about it, but they're not happy because they didn't think she should have been taken from her family. Vala's looking for her aliens now.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is just a story that needed to be told because these children belong with their people. They are a sovereign nation for a reason. They've had so much stolen from them. We don't have the right to steal their children. But let's quickly look at some of our missing persons for tonight. Please stay alert because when you're out and about, you could save a life by looking at faces and remembering. Remember, some people leave voluntarily and then something happens and they're not able to get back. And others don't have a choice because we know human trafficking is real. So when you go out, look around. Sometimes these people are in plain sight, but still need assistance. Be willing to help. Trust your instincts. If you see something suspicious, contact the authorities. Don't assume someone else is going to call. If you're scared to call the police, we have an email. It's set up for tips, the number 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. We'll turn your tip in for you. Look, I'll stay if the aliens come and take all the lizards. Okay, Fal is worried about lizards now. Irish loves lizards. Oh no, we're going to have a lizard fight.
Uh-oh.
So we'll pass along information because we want these people found, and that's what's important. This is Sierra Rianne Guzman, Billy. She's 15, you guys. She's been missing since October 3rd of 2025. She left at 7:48 a.m. from the Big Cypress Reservation in Florida. She was last seen at the Big Cypress Reservation, the school. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. I don't know. 7:48 a.m. Surveillance footage shows the subject leaving the north end of the school property at 8 a.m., walking willingly toward Josie Billy Highway. Now, like I said, sometimes we have these young ones that will leave willingly and then something happens. And sometimes it's because people are reaching out through different social media and they get themselves in trouble. So please keep an eye out for her. She's got brown eyes, black hair. She's 5'4", weighs 120 pounds. She was last seen with a black backpack, black jacket, black pants, white shoes. She has tattoos on her fingers. Contact the Big Cypress Police Department at 863-983-2285. Case number 2025-03034. Or always you can contact 911 if she's in a different location. Next, we have Celine.
Tasiqua?
Tasiqua? I'll go with that because it's hard. She was 17 when she disappeared. She'd be 18 now. She disappeared March 12th of 2024 from Yakima, Washington. She has brown eyes, dark brown hair, and she's 5'6", weighs 150 pounds. She has nose, ear, and lip piercings, a tattoo of a knife on her left ring finger, a smiley face between her right hand, thumb, and index finger. I would think those places would hurt, putting tattoos on your fingers. I know Fal and Irish have tattoos. Wouldn't those areas hurt? Just asking for a friend. But contact WSP Missing Persons Unit at 1-800-543-5678 or Yakima Nation Tribal PD at 509-865-2933. The case number is 24-001775. Let's get her brought home.
And in case anybody had any question, that is the Washington State Patrol.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, Fala says not bad at all. Okay. Irish thinks they would be. Oh, there you have it. Fala gave us the final word. Not bad. This is Ruth Barbara Lee Guzmer. She's 30 years old. She's been missing since January 7th of 2026 up in Anchorage, Alaska. She was last seen leaving a family member's home. She does tend to live a homeless lifestyle, which that's okay. If that's what works for her, we know that there have been others that, due to abuse, they feel more comfortable outside. She was wearing black, white, purple plaid pants. She has brown eyes, black hair. She's 5'2" and weighs 158 pounds. Contact the Anchorage Police Department at 907-786-8900. The case number is 2600-01159. So please, you guys, let's, keep an eye out. If you happen to see these people, let's do something. If you see something, say something. Remember, a law was written to protect Native children. It was navigated around by a man who knew exactly what it said. A federal investigation into whether a child was trafficked was shut down in 5 months with no public explanation. A whistleblower filed a complaint, received back a letter from the United States Office of Special Counsel confirming there is a substantial likelihood of wrongdoing. And that report's still owed to the president and to the Congress. The investigators are gone. The charges against the man at the center of the abuse investigations were dismissed without the victim ever speaking a single word in open court. And the family that took a Northern Cheyenne baby is in a castle in Scotland. The Northern Cheyenne are still waiting. They don't forget that one of their members is gone. So please remember that every killer, predator, trafficker, they depend on us being quiet, you guys. They depend on your silence, and don't give it to them. Someone knows something. Somebody always does. Tonight on our TJU Justice After Dark, we shared a story, This Matters, about a child from the Northern Cheyenne Nation who deserves to be remembered, checked on, and connected to her people. If you appreciate what we do, support us by watching. Hit those buttons, all that mojo that you're supposed to help. Floating hearts is supposed to help in the chat. I don't know how to even do that, but they say it helps. I don't know. There's so many different things that are supposed to help. What can I say? I hope you guys got something out of this story. It breaks my heart. I don't like to see injustice. But until next time, please stay informed, stay compassionate, keep seeking truth, keep demanding justice, you guys. Never stop speaking up on your social media. As we all know, our hashtag is silence is betrayal, and we're not going to be silent. We love all of you guys. We're going to see you on Sunday. Of course, I'm not monetized yet, Julie. We have our Venmo, and we have buy us a coffee in our thing. I don't know anything about options to do gifts. This is still new to me. If you want to email us at trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com and help us with anything, understanding things, we're open. If you have a story for us, do the same.
And don't forget our Linktree hub either.
Yeah.
That's in the description. So you can see everything Trial Junkies United on that page.
Cool. And of course, we wrote another song for the ending about the children. The first song pertained to the case, but this one really pertains to children. We love you guys so much. Thank you for supporting us, for being here with us. And we're going to see you on Sunday. And I hope you enjoy tonight, and we'll see you then. Ciao. Good night.
world had words for grief. We bury prayers beneath the leaves. These little hands, these ancient eyes, carrying nations to the sky. They laugh and run on hollow ground, where the drums of our fathers still sound. In their blood flows rivers of old stories never to be sold. We have bled for this, we have prayed for this. Every child born is a miracle we protect. You are the future of the tribe, the fire that keeps our spirit alive. Sacred and seen, wild and free, every child is worth the fight. We will stand through the darkest night. You are the seed of the sacred ground, the heartbeat of all that was found. It will stand through the darkest night. They tried to silence the drum, tear the young from where they come, but the language lives inside your tongue. This fight for you has just begun. We will never turn away, rising up to greet the day. Every child deserves to know where their roots run deep below. We have bled for this, we have prayed for this. Every child born is a miracle we protect. You are the future of the tribe, the fire that keeps our spirit alive. Sacred and seen, wild and free, every child is worth the fight. We will stand through the darkest night. You are the seed of the sacred ground, the heartbeat of all that was found. They can't take what lives in the bone, they can't break what was carved in stone. We rise as one, we rise as kin. The circle never ends again. Never ends again. You are the future of the tribe, the fire that keeps our spirit alive. Sacred and seen, wild and free, every child is worth the fight. We will stand through the darkest night. You are the seed of the sacred ground, the heartbeat of all that was found. Seeds of the sacred, never forgotten. We defend what is ours.